Look at the bibliography of reading. You could also think of it like a bibliography of research, and I will show a sample here in a minute. So this is just a chance to like gather sources. I do have some categories for you to look, like kind of a division for you to look up certain kinds of sources, just to make sure you're getting the right sorts of like well-rounded kinds of information that you might need just to guide that a little bit. And I don't know if you've ever done a bibliography. It is different than a works cited. So a works cited is like you write your paper, you have your sources that you directly use, like quoted, paraphrased, whatever, referenced in any way with direct wording, and you have your in-text citation, and then those in-text citations are supposed to direct you to then look at the list of works cited or references at the end for the information to help people find it. It's just the sources that you actually referenced in the paper. It's not all the ones you read, it's not ones you got ideas from, unless you specifically referenced those ideas in the paper. A bibliography is usually bigger because it's more, it could be a list of resources. Like I have books on my bookshelf that are like bibliographies of like reading on genre. And so there's different categories, and it's just a list of bibliographic information for sources I could go read if I wanted to learn more. For like assignments and research that you're doing, a lot of times it's everything that you read. Not necessarily everything you directly quoted or paraphrased, but everything that you read that influenced your ideas. So a bibliography is different, although it looks similar, but it usually tends to be, it is longer than the works cited section for that paper would be, because it includes more. So you're going to be working on this in your major assignments, like the subfolder. So you're going to create a document, and there is kind of a format for how this looks. You have a formatted title, which is like going to be an abbreviated version of the question you're going to ask, and it's going to say bibliography of reading. You're going to have an introduction, which is going to be like a brief, like 3 to 4 sentences. It's very quick. It hits on a couple of specific things. The issue you're looking into, the reason why it's important, like what is the point in looking into this information right now? What's going to be beneficial about it? Like if we had an answer to the question, like how would that help? The main question you're trying to answer. So like the actual question, not the issue or the problem, but like here's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay. The tone and style here is very objective and concise. There should be no indication of your opinion, personal bias regarding the issue. Remember, you're not creating an argument here. This should just be, here is what the issue is, not a thesis or a point or even anything engaging. Like really, like objective writing like is by definition like writing without passion. So there's no reason or need to engage your reader here with this, or to make them care about the issue in any way other than just like quickly stating like what the point is for like researching or better understanding this issue. Okay, so no thesis statements, anything like that up here. You need 12 sources. You have 3 sections. Current events, which is mostly like more like what you would think about like a news report. Like here is what's happening right now. Remember, conversations go on for long periods of time. So we're not trying to get events from the conversation that was happening about it, you know, like 5, 10, 15 years ago. We're looking as much as possible for the conversation that's happening like right now. And sometimes like what is now will depend on the issue. So like if it's COVID, like we're talking about like the last maybe couple of months. If you're talking about something that's a little bit not like covered in the media directly, you might be considering like the last couple of years. But it should be as recent as possible. So important events, studies, what's happening right now, what events are happening, what new information right now. Current conversation. These are more your secondary sources that represent or illustrate people's perspectives or concerns. There might be some bias. I mean, you might have that in the news, obviously, in current events, but you might have that in your current conversation as well, because these are going to represent like what are people saying. And we kind of talked about this before, like you have to include in your research things that are biased. You don't necessarily have to, or you probably should not be using those as like evidence of your point. because it's bias. But a lot of times, like when you read things, like they're constantly like quoting, like, here's what this person said, here's what this person thinks, to let, you know, readers know. So it does serve a purpose. There's lots of different ways to use sources. So you do want to get at people's concerns. This is where you might have like blogs or documentaries or magazines or interviews or even like scholars, things like that. There's no one type of source that goes in any of these sections, and you might find that some sources could fit arguably in all three. So it's up to you to make the best, like to just kind of make the decision about where it would best fit. Background or context, this is like important, maybe primary or like older studies. So if you're talking about like people mistrusting vaccinations, you might go back to that like 1990s study where they said that, you know, vaccines could cause autism and have all these problems because it kind of started the mistrust, even though that's been debunked later. Like that's an older study it's outdated, but it's foundational. So you're looking for things like even like terms, like information that kind of helps explain like what something is, or like a key like older event that could be important. So these are sources that kind of set the scene. They help illustrate how we got to the conversation that we're having now and how to understand it. You can pick between MLA or APA. I typically, you know, advise people to choose. You can choose the one that you know, but I typically say you should look and see what you're going to be using in your potential like major and see what they use and use this as a chance to learn it now. And of course, in each section, put sources in alphabetical order by the author's last name. So you do have to have, for sources you need one book or book chapter, probably a book chapter, at least 2 primary sources. So like current news, government documents, interviews, movies, testimonials. So, you know, I know primary sources and like what is considered like an appropriate news source can be difficult. So I guess one way to think about telling if it's primary regarding like news and things like that is it's whatever. If you're thinking about like a primary source for any event, it's whatever came out at the time of the event. So like an article that came out years ago about vaccines would not be primary for the issue right now. If you're talking about like 9/11, a news source that came out like at the time, like a reporter on the scene, that would be primary. A news article that came out now talking about 9/11 would not be primary. It's whatever is kind of illustrating that event and that conversation taking place at the time that it happened. Government documents tend to be primary. In direct like interviews, movies, books that are like novels or things coming out like right at that time, testimonials, lectures. There's lots of things that can count as primary, and that's one of the things we'll talk about in workshops with your sources, questions about that. Peer-reviewed articles from Atkins Library. The remaining ones are kind of up to you. You can have multiple peer-reviewed articles or other kinds of, you know, sources. It's kind of up to you. You can like use the whole point of doing some of the activities that we do is to build your research for your bibliography. So you're welcome, as you find useful sources, to move them into your bibliography. You can gather your own research. It's really difficult to do in a summer class just because of the time constraint, but you do have to submit that if you're going to do it. Here's a sample of what this assignment could look like. Sorry, the window is off center a little bit. I'll just move my face over here. So again, like so here's the abbreviated title. What are the different ways that multi-level marketing impacts those involved? This was from an annotated bibliography, actually, from previous semester. So I'm just going to switch this to what we're doing. Bibliography of reading. Blah. Okay. Introduction. So again, see how quick this is. Multi-level marketing appeals to those desiring to work from home, primarily stay-at-home parents. However, the structure and function of this type of business model has often been compared to the illegal pyramid scheme. It is debated. This is very like passive writing. Like it is debated whether or not someone can be successful in multi-level marketing. This research will explore the different aspects of multi-level marketing and the different ways that those specific aspects impact those involved. It will also analyze the similarities and differences between pyramid schemes and multi-level marketing. So it's very like, you know, here's the issue, here's why it's important, at the same time, you know, this is the problem, and we're looking into it because people, you know, consider, or people say that sometimes this is like a scam and it's illegal and people don't make a lot of money doing it. And then this is what she's exploring in her research. Here are her current event sources. And I use sheets, let's see, okay, so headings here. So heading 1, it's divided this way, heading 2. So these are her sources for current events, current conversation, background, or context. Now she had 10 because this is different. This was, I pulled this and kind of adjusted this document from an annotated bibliography from a previous semester. So you do have to have 12. She has 10. And then aside from like requirements, and the question is always like, what are you really looking for? I'm going to move my face back over here. I want research that shows genuine, like you're genuine learning about the issue and really attempting to make good, responsible choices about research, like really paying attention to what are the most like current important events, really trying to build like different perspectives in that current conversation, like really paying attention to what are the best places to put your sources and having the best ones possible, having variety of types of sources, types of information, perspectives. The goal is really like to have a variety, to have that well-rounded look at the issue, just to see that people are really doing that and really trying to get feedback on their work and make good choices. And then here are some sources you should avoid. Video clips, obviously, because they're an incomplete look at a source, like no like infographics or like straight images. You can use those for the digital essay, but they're not, since we're not building an argument, we're really looking at like well-rounded like information. So it's really difficult in 12 sources out of the hundreds or thousands of sources that are out there that an image would be the best possible way to give a well-rounded look. If you do find a helpful infographic, awesome. Use the whole study or the whole article that it came from. Any source where you can't identify the author or the publisher. Content farms, we're talking about that this week. Straight reference materials. Sources offering other superficial information that do not cite their sources. Sources that don't add something new. So you don't want to have you don't want to include like sources that all are repetitive, that kind of stuff. And here's just a little information about how it's going to be, how else it's going to be assessed, that kind of stuff. And then we will move on to workshop 1.